Funny, isn't it? A man can live his whole life believing someone else will come fix it. The money, the housing, the broken schools, the job that doesn't pay enough, the life that always feels 2 steps behind. He waits, quietly, steadily. He waits. Sometimes he waits with anger, sometimes with hope. But he waits all the same. And the world keeps moving. You see, no one tells you that waiting is its own kind of poverty. It feels passive, harmless, even responsible sometimes. After all, isn't that what you were taught? Follow the rules. Vote for the right people. Trust the system. Believe the promises. They'll take care of it. They the most dangerous word in a poor man's vocabulary. Because the moment you say, they will, you've already decided you won't. You won't build. You won't question. You won't grow. Not deeply. Not urgently. Because you're waiting for someone to bring you what only you can build. And I know that might sound harsh. But I'm not here to shame you. I've waited too. I've stared at the ceiling at 3 a.m. thinking, if only they paid better. If only they fixed the neighborhood. If only someone gave me a real chance. And maybe you have too. Maybe you're sitting in that kind of silence right now, between bills and hope, between working and wondering if any of it will ever change. It's a heavy place to sit. But let me tell you something. I wish someone had told me sooner. No one is coming. Not the government, not the mayor, not the president, not the man on the news with kind words and a plan. They may try. Some might even care. But they can't carry you where you won't walk, and deep down, you already know that. You've seen the programs, the speeches, the promises, and you've seen how little your life actually changed when they passed. You see, the trap isn't just the system. It's the belief that the system will rescue you. And that belief, soft, well-intentioned, it keeps you right where you are. Quiet, tired, frustrated, but still waiting for someone else to make it fair. Still waiting for someone else to make it better. But poverty doesn't wait. It grows. Like weeds in a garden no one tends. Every year you wait, it grows deeper. Not just in your wallet. In your thinking, in your bones, in your sense of what's possible. You stop dreaming. You start settling. You adjust to less. You normalize struggle. And one day, you look around and call it reality. Not because it has to be, but because you stopped believing anything else was coming, except what the government might give. That's the quiet part no one says out loud. Dependency sounds like survival. But too much of it? It kills your drive before life even gets the chance to reward you. And I'm not saying this system is perfect. Far from it. I'm not saying people shouldn't be helped. We all need help at some point. But there's a difference between receiving help and expecting to be carried forever. There's a difference between justice and surrender, and most people never learn the line. Because no one teaches them to stop waiting. No one tells them the truth, that the government might give you just enough to survive, but never enough to rise, and that's by design. Because if you expect the system to lift you, you'll never build the muscles to climb. You'll trade your power for promises, your ambition for assistance, your agency for hope that someone, someday, might fix it. But nothing changes until you do, and that's where we begin. Not with blame, not with rage, just truth. You can't keep waiting for rescue from a system designed to keep you where you are. You have to rescue yourself, not all at once, not dramatically, but one quiet, determined choice at a time. And maybe that's what this is. The first. 1. The moment you stop waiting for someone to take care of everything and start asking yourself what you were always meant to take care of. You ever notice how easy it is to shrink, not just your dreams, but your voice, your reach, your sense of what's possible? It starts slow. Maybe you didn't get the job you hoped for. Maybe you saw your parents work themselves to the bone and still struggle. Maybe you watched the news one too many nights and thought, this world is broken. There's nothing I can do, so you pull back just a little. You aim lower. You ask for less, and then over time, you begin to believe that's wisdom. Don't expect too much. Just be grateful. Let the government handle the big stuff. And that sounds noble, sounds responsible. But often, it's not wisdom. It's fear, dressed up like humility. And here's the quiet truth. The more you expect someone else to fix your life, the less you believe you can. That belief, that silent surrender, it seeps into everything. You stop looking for ways to grow because you're waiting for policy. You stop learning how money works because you assume it's only for the rich. You stop trying to earn more because you're afraid of losing the support you already have. So you stay small, not because you're lazy, not because you're broken, but because you were trained slowly, quietly, to let someone else drive. You were taught that survival is enough, that dependence is safety, that good people wait their turn and trust the system. But tell me this, how many generations have waited? How many families, neighborhoods, entire communities have lived and died? Still waiting? You think that's by accident? No, my friend. There's a reason the help is just enough. There's a reason the handouts don't come with hand-ups. There's a reason the rules keep you busy, but never free. Because a man who waits doesn't rise. He adapts. He copes. He explains. And eventually, he teaches his children to do the same. That's the heartbreak of it. Not just what happens to you, but what you unknowingly pass down. A poverty of ambition, a poverty of imagination, a poverty of ownership. And by the time someone wakes up to it, decades may have passed. They look in the mirror and ask, how did I end up here? The answer? Slowly, quietly, with good intentions and a misplaced trust. You can't keep handing your life to people who don't know you. The government doesn't know the look in your child's eyes when you can't afford what they need. It doesn't feel the shame in your chest when your card declines at the store. It doesn't carry your dreams. It carries its own agenda, and while you're waiting for it to care, your life keeps moving. Day by day, choice by choice. That's the part no one warns you about. The longer you wait for a better system, the more you miss the one thing that actually changes your life, your own agency, your own courage, your own ability to step back, shake the fog from your eyes and say, enough. I'm done waiting. Because here's the truth, plain and simple. The moment you stop expecting someone else to take care of everything, is the moment you start becoming dangerous to the system. Not reckless, not violent, but independent. And independence, real, internal, lasting independence, is the one thing no system can ever control. It doesn't start with rebellion. It starts with responsibility. With waking up and saying, this is my life, and I refuse to keep living it on someone else's terms. That shift from waiting to owning is quiet at first. But it grows. And when it does, everything starts to change. You know what's dangerous? Not cruelty, not injustice, not even poverty itself. It's the illusion of care, that gentle lie that tells you, don't worry, we've got you. And for a moment, it feels like love, like protection. Like someone finally sees you. You breathe a little easier. You stop pushing so hard. You tell yourself, maybe now I can rest. But what they hand you is rarely freedom. It's a leash, a long one maybe, a comfortable one, but a leash all the same. And before long, you stop asking, where can I go? And start asking, what am I allowed to do? That's the shift. That's when poverty becomes a mindset, not just a condition, because it's no longer about what you lack. It's about what you've surrendered. And here's the hard part. Most people don't even realize it's happening. They call it assistance. They call it support. They say things like, well, at least I'm getting something. But if what you're getting costs you the belief that you can create your own future, was it really help? Or was it a soft cage? I've seen people turn down work because the raise was small and the risk of losing benefits felt too high. Not because they were lazy, but because the system made it harder to move forward than to stay still. So they chose stillness. Because stillness felt safer. But nothing grows in stillness. Not a man, not a family, not a future. And maybe you've felt that too. That quiet fear that if you try, if you step out of line, you'll lose the little you've been given. So you hesitate, you settle, you convince yourself, this is just how it is. And the longer you say that, the more it becomes true. Not because it has to be, but because belief shapes behavior. And behavior shapes results. The system doesn't need to chain you physically. It only needs to convince you that you're already doing as well as you can. It needs you to think you're powerless, that you're fragile, that you're not ready to build something on your own. Because if you stop believing that, you stop depending on them. And when enough people stop depending, the whole machine starts to shake. Because it doesn't run on justice, it runs on quiet obedience, on people not asking too many questions, on people not dreaming too big, on people staying in their place. And if you think that sounds harsh, look around. Generations have lived under that belief. Smart people, capable people, people who could have changed everything. If only they believed they could. But no one told them. No one showed them. And when they reached out for help, they were handed just enough to survive, but not enough to grow. That's not care. That's containment. And you were not born to be contained. There's more inside you than what you've been allowed to express. There's more wisdom, more strength, more capacity than the system wants you to realize. But none of that matters until you stop waiting for someone to unlock the door. You've got the key. Always have. The question is, are you ready to use it? Because the illusion of care may comfort you for a season, but it'll cost you a lifetime of what could have been. And that's a price too high to keep paying. There's something most people never count when they talk about poverty. Not the money, not the debt, not the missed meals or unpaid bills. No. I'm talking about what you give up inside. The quiet things, the sacred things. Your confidence, your initiative, your belief that your actions matter. You see, when you expect the government to take care of everything, you may not even notice what it costs you, because the cost doesn't always scream. It whispers. It shows up when you hesitate to start something new, because you're afraid of losing your benefits. It shows up when you avoid learning a new skill, because the system never encouraged you to grow, only to cope. It shows up when you say things like, well, I guess this is just how life is. That's not just resignation. That's the erosion of self-leadership. And make no mistake, self-leadership is wealth. Not in dollars, but in dignity. It's the knowing deep down that you can move your life in any direction without waiting for permission. But when you grow up in a world that rewards dependence more than initiative, that light in you begins to dim. At first, just a little. But year by year, it fades. Until one day, you look in the mirror and see someone who used to try, used to believe, used to reach. And now just manages. And if you've ever felt that, I want to tell you something. That feeling doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've been taught the wrong story. You've been fed a version of life where freedom is risky and safety is found in obedience. But here's the secret they never tell you. Real safety isn't given. It's earned. Earned through discipline. Earned through skill. Earned through ownership of your choices. Not perfect choices, just honest ones. But you can't earn that kind of safety while waiting in line for someone else's idea of justice. Have to step off the path they laid for you and build your own. Yes, it's harder. Yes, it's uncertain. But that uncertainty is where growth lives. And I've seen it. I've seen people with nothing, no savings, no family support, decide they weren't going to live another year under someone else's ceiling. They took the small job. They learned the trade. They got up at 4 a.m. to read while their kids slept. And little by little, the grip of the system began to loosen, not because the system changed, but because they did. They stopped waiting. Stopped hoping someone would rescue them. Stopped blaming every failure on people in suits they'd never meet. And that shift, that internal rebellion, it changed everything. Now listen, I'm not telling you to ignore the world. I'm not saying governments shouldn't help. I'm saying help isn't home. Help is the bridge, not the destination. And too many people build their whole life on what was meant to be temporary. But if you stay too long on that bridge, you'll forget you were ever meant to cross. So let me ask you something, gently. Have you built your house on help? Have you stayed on the bridge too long? It's not too late to move, not too late to rebuild your sense of power, not too late to remember, this life, it's yours. No one else's, not the government's, not the system's, yours. And once you truly see that, once you feel it in your bones, you'll stop asking, when will they fix this? And start asking, what can I build with what I already have? You can feed a body. You can house a body. You can even educate a body. But you cannot build a spirit from the outside in. That has to come from within. And that's the part no system can give you. No matter how well designed, no matter how well meaning. Because a system can give you structure, but only you can give yourself purpose. And when people forget that, when they trade spirit for support, they don't just become poor in money. They become poor in meaning. That's the deeper poverty, the kind you can't measure in a paycheck, but in a man's eyes when he looks in the mirror and doesn't see a builder anymore, only a receiver, a survivor, a man waiting for instructions. But you weren't made to be ruled. You weren't made to be watched over like a pet, told where to go, how to live, and when you're allowed to rise. You were made to govern yourself. To wake up and decide your direction. To fail on your own terms. And get back up, not because someone said you could, but because something inside you refused to stay down. That's what systems can never give. Because that's not policy. It's identity. And far too many people have traded their identity for stability. They've let go of the fire inside, just to keep the lights on outside. I get it. I really do. When you're tired, broke, unsure where the next check is coming from, you want relief. You crave it, but relief isn't freedom. It's the pause between decisions. It's what you do with that pause that makes or breaks your life. You can sit in it, wait for more help, fall asleep in the arms of the state. Or you can stand up, look around, and say, this isn't where I stop, it's where I start. Because no matter how generous the support, you'll always live under its rules. And deep down, you know what that means. It means they decide how much is enough, what you qualify for, what box you fit in. But here's the thing, when you build something yourself, no one can take it from you. Not a policy change, not a politician, not a broken promise, because it didn't come from them. It came from you, from your hands, your heart, your hunger to live on your own terms. That's the kind of wealth the world can't tax. And systems can't deliver. It doesn't always look like riches. Sometimes it looks like a man who fixes engines in his garage and knows he doesn't owe anyone for his bread. Sometimes it's a mother who starts a side business at night because she refuses to teach her kids that survival is enough. Sometimes it's quiet, simple, unseen, but it's real, and it's yours if you want it. Not by demanding more from them, but by demanding more from yourself. And that's a hard thing to say, I know that, because it means the excuses have to go. It means the blame has to shrink. It means the mirror gets heavier. But it also means your life becomes yours again. And for that, it's worth it. There's something sacred about that first moment you realize you're no longer waiting. No longer waiting for permission. No longer waiting for policy. No longer waiting for someone else to come fix your life. You wake up a little differently. The day doesn't feel like something happening to you. It feels like something you're shaping, one quiet act at a time. And it's not because the world got easier. It's not because someone finally handed you a chance. It's because something inside you said, no more waiting. More blaming. No more shrinking into the background of my own life. That shift, it doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it starts small. You pick up a book instead of the remote. You ask questions instead of nodding quietly. You stop saying, the system's broken, and start asking, what can I build anyway? And slowly, your story begins to change. Because here's the truth. Systems don't raise people. People raise themselves, or they don't. And I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen people born into poverty who never waited for better laws or better leaders. They became their own leaders. Not loud, not proud, but steady. They understood something most folks miss. When you take responsibility for your life, you take back power no government can give you. Not because you don't need help, but because you've decided to help yourself first. That's where the change begins. Not in the courtroom, not in a budget bill, but in the quiet corners of your day, where you choose to be the one who moves, not the one who waits. Because waiting robs you of rhythm. It dulls your instincts. It makes you forget how much you already have in your hands. Let me say that again. You already have more than you think, more time than you use, more energy than you admit, more potential than you've been told. But the government can't activate that for you. It can only give you enough to stay where you are. Only you can decide to move forward. And when you do, you start to see life differently. You stop measuring your worth by how much support you qualify for. You stop letting fear dictate your next move. You stop hoping they'll change the rules and start writing your own. And yes, it's hard. No one tells you how much effort it takes to unlearn the habit of being passive, of waiting for direction, of outsourcing your responsibility. But once you begin, you'll wonder how you ever lived another way. Because action does something to a man. It wakes him up. It sharpens his mind. It opens his eyes to opportunities that were always there, but hidden behind the fog of dependency. That's when things really start to shift, because you're not just working. Now you're building. Not just surviving. You're choosing. And every small win reinforces the truth. You were never meant to be managed. You were meant to rise on your own 2 feet, with your own mind, at your own pace. And no matter how loud the noise gets out there, how many people say you can't, or shouldn't, or need more help before you try. You know better now. You've tasted what it feels like to own your life. And once you've had that taste, you'll never want to go back. Not because it's easy, but because it's yours. There's a war going on. Not with guns, not with fire, not even with words. It's quieter than that. It's the war for your will. Every day, in subtle ways, the world tries to convince you that you're not capable, that you're not strong enough, that you're not supposed to want more. It tells you, stay in line, wait your turn. Be grateful for what you've got, even if it's not enough. And at first, those voices sound reasonable, polite, even protective. But over time, they become heavy. They start to sound like your own voice, your own thoughts, your own beliefs, until you can't tell the difference anymore between what's true and what you've been told to believe. And that's the real danger. Not just that you're poor in money, but that you're poor in expectation. You no longer expect to grow. You no longer expect to win. You no longer expect anything better than survival. And once that poverty of spirit sets in, you could hand a man $1 million, and he'd still lose it all, because he doesn't believe he belongs on the other side of struggle. That's the legacy of waiting too long. The soul forgets how to reach. It forgets the shape of desire, the rhythm of hunger, the joy of striving. It becomes comfortable in the holding pattern, even if it hates it. That's the strange thing about comfort. It doesn't have to feel good. It just has to feel familiar, and familiarity can feel safer than freedom. So you see people stay, not because they want to, not because they're happy, but because the idea of taking full ownership of their life feels too overwhelming, too risky, too uncertain. But here's what no one tells them. You're already at risk. Every day you wait, every time you depend on someone else's decision, every time you let a form, a process, a policy stand between you and your potential. That's risk. That's vulnerability. Because what happens when the rules change? What happens when the assistance dries up? What happens when the people in charge decide you're not worth helping anymore? That's when it hits. The realization that you were never secure. You were just numb. You weren't protected. You were parked. And the longer you stay parked, the harder it is to get the engine running again. But you still can. You're not broken. You're not too late. You're not stuck. Unless you decide to be. That's the part that stings. But also the part that saves. Because the moment you see that you've been holding the wheel this whole time, even while pretending someone else was driving, that's the moment your story changes. Not instantly, not loudly, but deeply. You stop fighting shadows. You stop blaming systems. You start reclaiming the only territory that truly matters. Your own mind, your own time, your own daily choices. And from there, everything starts to move again. Not because the world is kinder, but because you are stronger. And when strength returns, poverty starts to retreat. Not just from your bank account, but from your bones. You ever seen a man lean too long on a crutch? At first, it's necessary. He's hurt, unsteady, unsure. The crutch helps him walk again. It gives him time. But if he never lets it go, if he builds his life around it, his leg never gets strong. He forgets how to stand without it. And what began as healing becomes a lifelong limp. That's what happens when you mistake help for home. When you start to believe that assistance is a way of life, not a season of recovery. It's one of the most dangerous mistakes a person can make, because it doesn't look dangerous. It looks responsible, cautious, safe, but it quietly strips away your strength, your adaptability, your creative fire. The longer you hold onto the crutch, the more your muscles forget what they were made to do. And poverty? Poverty loves that, because poverty is not just about lack. It's about forgetting you were ever whole to begin with. And that's the trick of the system. It offers you just enough to keep leaning, but never enough to run. It's not that help is bad. Help is good. Help is kind. But help must have an end. It must lead to something. Otherwise, it becomes its own kind of harm. I've seen men refuse promotions because they feared losing their subsidies. I've seen women turn down opportunity because it would push them $1 over the limit. And I've watched those same people spend years in quiet resentment, asking why life never changed. It didn't change because they were afraid to move without the crutch, afraid to step out on shaky legs and test their strength. But here's the thing about healing. It's uncomfortable. It hurts a little at first, but it wakes something up inside you that dependency can never touch. Dignity. And once you taste that dignity again, once you feel what it's like to earn your bread, to solve your own problems, to make your own way, even when it's hard, you don't want to go back, not because the path is easy, but because it's yours. Every inch of progress, every dollar earned, every hard lesson learned on your own 2 feet. It builds a kind of wealth the world can't measure, a quiet richness, a private confidence, a deep knowing that no one is coming to save you, and that's okay, because you don't need saving. You need momentum. And momentum doesn't come from comfort. It comes from movement. From trying, failing, adjusting, improving, and none of that happens while you're waiting for someone else to decide it's your time. So maybe today is that moment. Not dramatic, not heroic, just honest. A quiet moment where you say, I've leaned long enough. It's time I walked on my own. Again, not because it's easy, but because you were never meant to live your whole life on a borrowed leg. The hardest poverty to escape is the one you don't even see. It's not in the wallet, not in the house, not in the job. It's in the mind. It whispers to you, this is just how life is. It's too late now. Be grateful you've got anything at all. And it's polite too. Never yells. Never makes a scene. Just quietly chips away at your sense of possibility. It tells you to wait. Wait for better times. Wait for better leaders. Wait for the next election, the next policy, the next fix from the outside. And so you wait, but you don't notice what's slipping away while you do. Your initiative, your imagination, your ability to respond to life instead of just receive it. See, when you expect the government to take care of everything, you begin to forget that you're allowed to create your own path. You forget you can build something, even from nothing. You forget that you have power, not always in big, flashy ways, but in quiet, persistent choices. You can read, you can learn, you can save, you can serve, you can start small. And small grows. but you've been trained to think small is failure. So you reject the seed while praying for the harvest. That's the real poverty. Not of money, but of mindset. A poverty that's inherited, reinforced, and disguised as humility. It's not humility to stay dependent. It's not noble to keep your head down and just survive. You were made to build, to rise, to contribute something that outlives you. And you can't do that if you're always looking up at someone else's table, hoping they'll drop you a plate. You've got to build your own, even if it's rickety at first, even if the legs are uneven, even if nobody comes to eat with you at the start. It's yours. And once you begin, even if it's a tiny step, something shifts. You stop waiting. You stop blaming. You stop expecting the system to feed you what your own hands were made to. Grow, and that's when you're dangerous. That's when you start to break the cycle, because now, you're not just surviving poverty, you're unlearning it. You're teaching your children something different. You're showing your community what's possible. You're building legacy instead of waiting for leftover. And that, my friend, that's how wealth really begins. Not with luck, not with politics, not with perfect timing, but with a decision. Quiet, private, invisible moment where you say, no more waiting. I begin. So here we are, not at the end of a story, but the beginning of a new one. Because if you've made it this far, you're not asleep anymore. Something in you is stirring. A realization. A quiet return of power, not the loud kind that marshes in. The streets, the deep kind. The kind that doesn't need attention. Because it's already decided. See, poverty isn't always about lack. Sometimes it's about forgetting. Forgetting that you are not just a mouth to feed, not just a vote to collect, not just another number in someone else's system. You're a builder. But builders need truth, not comfort, not promises, truth. And the truth is this: no one's coming to save you. Not fully, not forever. The government may help for a season. It may ease the load for a while, but it will never hand you power. That part is up to you. The moment you wait for someone else to fix your life, you surrender the steering wheel. And the longer you wait, the more you forget how to drive. So the question isn't, when will the system change? The question is, when will you decide to change regardless of the system? Because there's always a reason to stay stuck. Always a story, a wound, a blame. But the day you stop rehearsing the reasons and start reclaiming the responsibility, that's the day everything shifts. You may not have money yet. You may not have support. You may still live in a place that feels forgotten. But inside you, something different has begun. You've stopped expecting. And you've started owning. You've stopped pointing fingers. And you've started lifting. Hands. To work, to build, to create, to give. That's wealth. That's legacy. That's freedom. And no law can give you that. No election can protect it. No handout can match it. Only you. Only your daily decision to take back the pieces of yourself you handed away. Your drive, your vision, your courage, your future. You don't owe the world your silence. You don't owe your children your excuses. You owe them the full, awakened version of you. The one who stopped waiting. The one who stood up, looked around and said, I'll build from here. And if you do, quietly, consistently, with no applause, something will happen. The poverty will lose its grip. The mind will clear. The patterns will break, and a new life will begin. If this stirred something in you, pass it on. Someone else is still waiting for the government to save them. Maybe your words could remind them, you can save yourself.